Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the weTHRIVE podcast, where we share stories from entrepreneurs around the world about how they're helping others and themselves create an impactful legacy. I'm your host, Casey Clark, Chief Growth Officer and founder of C. Clark Consulting. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing my dear friend, Larisa. So Larisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Yay, thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
Same here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was in the military for 20 years. I was in the Air Force. And when I joined the military, I originally, was going to travel the world and do all these amazing things. And I ended up getting stationed back at Fort Meade, which is in Maryland, which is an hour away from where I joined the military from. And I ended up being stationed there my whole career, which was amazing because I was near family. But that also allowed me to start my own business really early on in my military career. So a couple of years after joining, I started working at a gym, and then I became a personal trainer, and I started doing all of these other things. And because I never had to move around and travel the world like other people in the military, I was able to really grow my business while I was still in. So then when I retired in 2017, now I'm doing this full time. And my business is strong by nature, and my focus is really empowering people and helping them reach their goals mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, helping people feel better. And it just kind of took this, for me, a really long time of kind of growing into the place that I am now, but being able to just learn and understand so much along the way. And it was like a little bit of the stress of starting your own business wasn't there as much because I was in the military and I had, income and a job, but I was also able to really focus on helping people and figuring out what I want to do through the last 20 years of being in this business as well. So I feel like I'm finally thriving after all of the trial and errors of, not really errors, but learning what's working and what's not working, and learning really what I want to do in my business now.
Right. So I have to ask, was your job in the military related to what you do now, or was it completely different?
So I joined the military and I was a Turkish linguist. And so my actual job not this. But during that time, I was also really fortunate to have great people around me, and I got a lot of opportunities to do other stuff while I was in the military. So while my main job for 16 years was technically as a Turkish linguist, a lot of the times I was doing other things like running a fitness program and being a program manager for other stuff, and running a health program and teaching yoga in the military and doing all sorts of other stuff. Even though technically I was a Turkish linguist. And then for the last 4 years, what I'm doing in my job now is my business is actually what I got to do for the military as a special duty. So it was really awesome and a really amazing way to end my career, and really helped me kind of hone in on what's important for me.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that, now you're kind of thriving. So talk to us a little bit about what that word means to you.
So for me, I think it's personally being at a good place within myself and in my business, to where sometimes I had a tendency to get really caught up in the work and maybe not take care of myself as much, or get so focused on, well, I just have to take care of myself or my family, that forget about that why, and forget about what's really important to me and the kind of impact that I want to make on this planet. And so I feel like I'm finally at a good place where I'm able to integrate all of those things, where, I'm taking time to take care of myself. I'm doing what I want to do in my business and make a positive impact in the world, and also, be there with my family. So for me, I feel like I'm thriving.
That's awesome. I love it. So what obstacles have you faced, both personally or professionally, that kind of maybe delayed you getting to that thriving point, or made you feel like you weren't exactly thriving?
I mean, I think the obstacle of me knowing what I want to do with my business, but it being a part-time job, being in the military. And so getting to, because I also love what I was able to do in the military. So being able to do both things at the same time, but also taking a lot of time. And sometimes I would be so focused on what I wanted to do at work, getting things done, and dealing with some perfectionism in myself of like working really hard and really long on things that weren't really that big a deal, but it would take a lot of time for me. And I was neglecting myself, right? And so I think that obstacle of doing those things that I was passionate about, but forgetting that I also need to get adequate sleep and eat and,
Those things are
those
important.
things, those things that I'm like talking to other people about in my business, but that I was struggling with for myself. Because like, oh, well, this is more important. Well, this person needs me, so that's more important than me stopping and eating lunch. And so it'd be many days where it was like, well, I'd pack my lunch and I would never eat it because I was so busy doing things that were important. But going back to that question of obstacles, is that obstacle that I was putting there in myself of having all of these things that were important, but then not really prioritizing them in the way that they should have been prioritized.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there like a specific moment that you had where you're like, okay, enough is enough. Like I have to change the way that I'm doing things?
I don't know if there was a specific moment. When I retired, this other obstacle of fear and not trusting myself, I retired and I got a job at NIH, which was amazing. And I really loved where I was working, but it was also, when I was in the military, I was able to teach as part of my job. And, we got time to work out as part of our jobs, and I wasn't commuting, and there was just more time. So then I retired, I got this great job, still dealing with my own perfectionism and working extra hours and commuting and not having time to work out. And so it was a year, but my husband would talk to me all the time about like, hey, you're doing too much, because I'm also still doing my side business, which at that point I was too scared to have as my full business. And so I don't know that there was like a single breaking point, but it was that year of just my own health declining, like just being exhausted all the time, because in my mind, I'm like, I have to grow my business. And, listening to all of these entrepreneurs who are talking about, well, you have to get up early and stay up late. And if you care about business, this is what you have to do. And it's not a 9-to-5 job. And like having that mindset of, well, you have to grind if this is important to you, and also take care of my family and cook healthy meals and do all of these other things. And that, my own health and well-being was at that back burner. So I'm like, well, I'm saving people's lives. Like, I'm so passionate about the business that I'm in, like the work that I'm doing, that I was putting that as a priority. And so it was about exactly a year that I was there. And finally my husband was like, okay, it's okay that you stop working there, and let's just go all in and you start focusing on your business. And it was just like this huge weight off of my shoulders, but at the same time, like that pressure of, I think this month I just hit that 2-year mark of doing this full time and not having another, job to pay the bills. And so that pressure of, well, before I've been doing this work for 20 years, but it was always on the side and I didn't need the money. It was all about, well, I'm just doing this service in the world because I think this is my purpose to do this work. Versus now it's like, well, I still believe that, and I also need to make money. So there's that added pressure of, oh yeah, you also have to get paid to do this. And, that my husband supported me and believed in me enough to say, okay, you can let go of that stable income job. I had saved up a lot of money while I was working for that first year. And so I'd given myself a year to say, okay, you have to be profitable to some degree. Like, this is the amount of money you have saved. And so making it through that first year was super scary, but also really empowering. Like, oh yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
And still remembering, like, I can't go back to the way that it was with how many hours I was working, and not taking my care of myself in the way that I should be.
Yeah. Did you have kids at that time too?
Yeah, I mean, this was only 2 years ago. So my kids
Oh
were,
yeah, duh.
yeah. So we moved out. So here's another thing. In 2017 is when I retired, in November. And in my mind, because I don't think I mentioned it, so I'm a yoga therapist and also a life coach. So I've been teaching yoga at lots of places. I was doing private sessions with people. They were coming to our old house, which was, basically like them in my living room or on my porch doing yoga. So we moved out here and we built this big, amazing house with a yoga studio in the basement. And so that was like why we moved out here and got such a huge house, so that we could have this space, so that I could have people coming over and do overnight retreats with people, and just have this like oasis out, like an hour away from DC and Baltimore. So that pressure of our mortgage went up quite a bit, because I was going to have this big thriving business from our home. And now fast forward, and we're not doing anything in person anymore. And I get to hang out in my big, beautiful yoga studio, but nobody else is coming over here now. And so, just that added pressure of us building this place and me retiring at that same time. So that's where there was that pressure of, okay, well, I'm going to go get this other job so I can have some stable income while I'm building up my business. But when I was gone, 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day, whatever it was, that's still just not very much time to then also get clients and do this kind of work. Yeah.
It's a lot. Well, it sounds like your husband was really instrumental in kind of giving you that nudge. So what other resources did you use to kind of get through that?
I used people. It sounds bad. I didn't use people. I allowed other people to support me, and just really being open about things that I need or things that I was struggling with. And I'm so incredibly grateful for people that I worked with when I was in the military, and people I met along the way, and people that were mentors and advisors and just sounding boards for stuff. I think for me, that biggest resource is just other people, and like reaching out for help, and being open and vulnerable about, like, oh yeah, I don't need to know everything, and I don't need to do everything, and it's okay to ask out and get support from other people.
Yeah. So with getting support from other people, were you also having them like hold you accountable for getting enough sleep, for making sure that you're eating lunch, or were you just like, okay, I need to buckle down and just really hold myself accountable?
Yeah. I think I'm good at holding myself accountable for stuff, but at the same time, like, my husband is also like so supportive of me, and also, can call me out on stuff. And so he's always there to remind me. He would call me and be like, did you eat today? Because I go days without eating. Like, it's just not my thing. So I know I have to like remind myself, because I'll cook for other people. I'll have the food, and then I would run from, meeting to meeting or client to client. And so I am good about holding myself accountable, and also accepting that feedback from my husband. And I'm a life coach, executive coach, and a holistic life coach. And I also have my own coaches. And so not necessarily that there's that daily accountability, but that I know that I'm like in that community of support.
Yeah.
And that for me is helpful, that I have, regular scheduled stuff with my coaches. And then I have some mentors that I know that I can just reach out to, and we might have, sometimes weekly calls, sometimes monthly calls, but being able to just do those check-ins.
Yeah. And I feel like kind of being in the space that you're in, I mean, not that I'm a practicing coach, but having that knowledge, there's like almost a level of guilt that comes along with it when you're like, okay, I'm telling people to do this, but I'm not doing it myself, so I better walk the walk. So I don't know if it's the same case for you, but I know that that's always kind of in the back of my mind and like a little nudge when I need it.
Yeah. And I think for many, many years, like that's where it was. Maybe a bit of it, like the ego getting in the way, like, well, this is what I'm meant to be doing, and maybe they're more important than me, so I'm going to do what I can to help, save them. And, it's not me saving anyone, and I need to be showing up as my best self. But that took a lot of like work on my own self, and like me continuing to do that work, and also being open and honest with people. Like, I'm not perfect. Like, I am still just a human. I'm still a mom and wife and daughter and friend and all of these other roles that I still have to balance. But it also helps me understand my clients better, because I know it's not just about saying, okay, we'll do these things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always a struggle, right? Like, there's always days that I want to stay up later and work and not sleep. And I have to like hold myself accountable. Like, nope, this is your bedtime.
Yeah.
And, it might not be the same things that my clients struggle with, where, sometimes it's other things that are getting in the way, but it's still the same of like focusing on what's important. And for me, I have to remind myself of that every single day. Like,
Yeah.
this is what's important. And that includes like sleeping and eating and getting outside in nature. And so, especially since COVID started, like these last 6 months, I've been so committed and on schedule with those things of like, these are the requirements for me. I have to get outside every day. I have to make sure that I'm getting sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's awesome though, because like, for me watching you and, seeing you post and knowing that that is a commitment that you made, it's like, okay, like like you said, you're a daughter, you're a wife, you're a mom, like she can wear all these hats and still make time to take a 1,000,000-mile walk every day. Like, why can't I get out for 15 minutes, So it's inspiring to just be able to watch you, stay committed. So yes, definitely in your purpose. So speaking of your purpose, talk to us a little bit about like what legacy means to you and the type of legacy that you foresee yourself leaving.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question, because honestly, for the first 19 and a half years of me doing this work, like that was never even something that I thought about, like that idea of legacy. And it wasn't until recently, and actually as part of the coaching program that I'm in now, where I even thought about that at all. The idea of setting up something now for the future, and me getting out of my own way when it comes to talking about or doing stuff like live videos and recorded content and anything like that.
Hey.
Which somebody used to talk to me about all the time. But yeah, it was like, well, there's no point in that. Like, I can still reach people in other ways. But then that idea of like, oh yeah, but a legacy, and I do want it to be bigger than me right now in this moment. And I do know the impact that I make in people's lives, and those people that connect with me and are my ideal clients, right? Because I'm not for everyone, and that's okay too. But that in my mind, I don't think we've talked about this at all, but I have a list of whys of what I do in my business. And one of them is to help people who are suffering. And every day in my mind, I think about like me working with somebody can help them from committing suicide, can help keep them from that. And that's something that's just at the forefront for me every single day. And many of my clients are at that place every day. And so like, it makes it just so much more real for me that all of that other stuff doesn't matter. Like, I don't sit around and watch Netflix. I don't hang out and party or do any of those things, because like, I know that my mission is just so important. And if I can help one person not kill themselves, like, that's just so important to me. Sorry, I'm getting emotional today. But like, that is what my mission is, and I feel like so strongly about it. And so when we think about legacy, yes, I think that part of it is me being able to connect with someone one-on-one, or just to give them that hope to, you know, make it through another day, or to reach out for support, or whatever it is that they need. But also being able to reach more people, you know, and we're talking about doing video stuff or having things on my webpage. Thank you for helping create that. Like, being able to help more people and getting outside of like this sphere that I have here. And when I think about, you know, what I really want for my life, and to make that kind of impact. And so, you know, that legacy, it's not just, okay, well, maybe I had some little part in this person not killing themselves and then going and still being there for their family, or making an impact in a different way themselves, but like how that can spread. And so me impacting one person, and how that one person can then make an impact in someone else's life, and how that can just spread and spread and spread and grow. And so legacy, going back to your question about legacy, it's not that I, you know, need my name known around the world or anything like that, but just that I made a difference in someone's life. And I just believe that everyone has such amazing gifts and talents and things that need to be shared with the world. And if I can just have one small piece in helping them realize that, remember that, recognize that, however you want to look at it, and so that they can grow and thrive and be here to share their gifts with the world. Like, that's really all I want in my life. And to set, you know, a good example for my kids, to say, like, you don't need to follow in my footsteps of this work, but and just believing in something bigger than yourself, and making a positive impact and sharing yourself with the world in whatever way that is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. So we've been working together for probably over a year now, and I never knew that that was something that was at the forefront of your mind. And I thank you for sharing that, especially after you and I were essentially celebrating someone's life this morning who committed suicide. That, I mean, you talking about that just made literally like the hair stand up on my head. So I appreciate you and your willingness to be committed to that, because it is a very big thing, you know. And like you said, if you're able to help them spread their gifts and still be here to share themselves with everyone, I think that's probably one of the best legacies that anyone could ever leave. So thank you. So it's people like you who made me want to do this podcast, because I wanna get into stuff like that. We just need more of that in the world today. So again, thank you for that. So now to the good, lighter stuff. So being an entrepreneur and a mom and a wife, and just, you know, even a veteran, what are some of the nuggets that you have for people that they, you know, might be able to use to help them thrive in their life?
Some nuggets. Reaching out for help. Remembering your why for whatever it is. It's really easy to get distracted, especially how, you know, the ease of information and things to do. And it's so easy to get caught up in all of the stuff that doesn't really matter, that sometimes we need to just take that step back and focus on our why. And that's why, I have my list of whys right there on my desk that every single day I can read so that I can stay focused on what really matters for me. And I think a lot of times people forget that. And, you just kind of go through the day and get pulled in all of these different directions. And by the end of the day, we forgot like what was really important to us.
Yeah.
And I think that alone, like so many people go to bed feeling worthless or that they've wasted their day or wasted their life because just not having that focus and clarity. What are some other nuggets? For me, it's slowing down and being able to take time just to reflect, whether it's something that you make as a daily practice first thing in the morning or at night, or just the reminders in between meetings or some kind of a way every day, just taking time to slow down and reflect and just breathe. Like when in doubt, like just breathe. And so often people, get stuck and they're physically like actually holding their breath. And sometimes we just need to take a breath and realize it will be okay.
Yes. Very, very true. So is there anything else that kind of came up during this that you haven't shared and you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your contribution to the world. I know that you travel all over and help people, and you've helped me tremendously and really kind of pushed me into being a better person. So thank you for all you do. And thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And I also want to thank Stephen Lamar Moore, who is the sponsor of our podcast, and he created the music for it. So thank you again, Stephen, and thank you so much, Larisa, for joining us today.
Thanks, Casey. I'm so grateful to be a part of weTHRIVE.